This week's topic on Japanese immigration will conclude with a discussion on the social organization in the Japanese American community. Without social organization, they would not have been able to sustain anti Asian hostilities. In our discussions, we'll talk about comparisons with Chinese social organizations and also the role of ethnic enterprise. As discussed in our previous slides, anti-Chinese exclusion evolved into anti-Asian exclusion. The Asiatic Exclusion League was formed in San Francisco in 1905. There were 231 organizations affiliated, 195 labor unions. It targeted Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, and later Indians. Racial lumping was their form of operation. All Asians were viewed as the enemy and had to be excluded. Japanese immigrant response to racism was ethnic solidarity. Social organizations based on ethnic solidarity were formed to weather discrimination and racism. There existed higher level organizations in both the Japanese immigrant community and the Chinese immigrant community. For the Japanese immigrant community, the Japan Association of America, or JAA, was the highest form of social organization representing the community. The Japan Association was formed after the Gentleman's Agreement of 1907. It was Japanese Consul General led. It hired skilled white attorneys to take up civil rights cases and citizenship cases. It also controlled exit permits, and it published pamphlets to bring understanding of the Japanese community and culture to the outer society. It also conducted morality campaigns to prevent negative image and stereotyping of the Japanese. The Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, or known as the Chinese Six Companies, was the highest body in the Chinese immigrant community. It was formed in 1868 to protect the civil rights of Chinese immigrants. It was considered the Supreme Court of the Chinese community. It claimed to be the voice of Chinese America. It was merchant-led. It hired skilled white attorneys to fight cases against racism. It controlled exit permits, and it was also consul general influenced. On the district level, both Japanese and Chinese had organizations based upon the home country districts in which the immigrant formerly lived in. The Japanese district associations were called Kenjin Kai. They were prefectural based. They provided a social network which included mutual economic support for the newly arrived immigrant, employment opportunities, housing, and credit rotating loans. The Chinese district associations were called Hois, and the Hois were district based, and people spoke a common dialect, a social network built around dialect. It also provided for mutual economic support, employment opportunity, and disputes were settled within the Hui. If there should be disputes between the Chinese Hui organizations, they would be settled by the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, or Chinese Six Companies, which would serve as an arbitrating body. Such was the case as Asian immigrants had to survive separately from white society. In terms of the vice industries, the Japanese did not have organizations that compared with the Chinese Tongs. The Tongs were Chinese fraternal organizations. They were worker-based and had roots in the triad societies in China. The power of the Tongs were the result of exclusion and racism, which forced Chinese immigrants to rely upon illegal passage into the U.S. through Tong smugglers. The Tongs also benefited from bachelor vices, including their promotion of gambling, drugs, and prostitution. In the Japanese community, there were uh, no similar organizations such as the Tongs. There were no organized vice industries, no organized gambling or large scale prostitution industries. This would be strictly avoided and controlled by the Japanese government. Japanese ethnic enterprise was facilitated by group cooperation. The Kenshinkai prefectural-based organizations established credit rotating associations known as Tanomoshi. Individuals would donate into a credit rotating association, and they took turns to borrow money to start business enterprises. The other Asian ethnic groups also had similar credit rotating associations. The Chinese had Hui, credit rotating associations. Koreans had Kie, credit rotating association. This was the only way to get loans because Asians found it difficult to obtain startup monies from local banks. Farmers cooperatives were also established to build and fortify Japanese ethnic enterprises. The principle of Tanomu, which means trust and honor and working together, was employed. Farmers cooperatives were organized to purchase bulk foods, which had cheaper prices, marketing, agricultural education, and also dispute settlement. Ethnic enterprise was established through this idea of vertical integration, where at every level, uh, from retailing to the public, wholesaling and distribution, business to business connection, uh, and growing of produce, uh, Japanese ethnic enterprise and cooperation would facilitate this vertical integration of agriculture that was beginning to take shape. Anti-Japanese sentiments, though, would challenge Japanese ethnic enterprise. Japanese success would eventually evolve into anti-Japanese feelings and efforts to avoid the Chinese experience through ethnic enterprise would eventually fail. In comparing hostilities towards the Chinese and the Japanese, the Chinese were charged with being cliquish and they wore a strange attire. They lived in bachelor societies and carried out vices. They were aliens, ineligible for citizenship. The Japanese were criticized for uh, being too Western. They wore Western clothing. Uh, Men brought over picture brides to settle. They didn't live in bachelor societies. They attempted to adopt Western culture, and this was seen as a threat to whites. And still, they ended up being placed in the category alien ineligible for citizenship. In 1906, the San Francisco School Board created an international incident. 39 Japanese students were placed in the Oriental schools in San Francisco, apart from the white schools. Japan, a powerful military power, filed a complaint with the federal government. This created a federal local divide between the federal government and the city of San Francisco. President Theodore Roosevelt intervened and threatened to send federal troops to San Francisco. Japanese students were now allowed to enter white schools. Not the case, though, for the Chinese students. Only Japanese students were allowed entry. A more militarily powerful Japan modernized by the Meiji Restoration, was now on an equal footing with the U.S. for now. In the Supreme Court case Takao Ozawa versus the U.S. in 1922, Ozawa argued that he qualified for U.S. citizenship under the 1790 naturalization law. His attorneys argued that Japanese were white. The Ozawa family lived as assimilated Americans. He claimed to be a true American. The court ruled otherwise. It argued that race is what defines citizenship. It's true that Ozawa and his family were upstanding and assimilated, but they were not of the Caucasian race. An excerpt from one of Takao Ozawa's two legal briefs stated, "I neither drink liquor of any kind, nor smoke, nor play cards, nor gamble, nor associate with any improper person. My honesty and my industriousness are well known among my Japanese and American acquaintances and friends, and I am always trying my best to conduct myself according to the golden rule. So I have all the confidence in myself that as far as my character is concerned, I am second to none. In the name, General Benedict Arnold was American, but at heart he was a traitor. In name, I am not an American, but at heart I am a true American." Not able to obtain citizenship, Japanese persons like Takeo Ozawa were denied the right to own land. Hostility in America was centered around ownership of land, and Japanese were now seen as buying too much agricultural lands. Alien land laws in California were instituted in 1913 and 1920 to remove land rights from Japanese aliens. In California, the Alien Land Law was passed in 1913. Aliens ineligible for citizenship were denied the right to land ownership. Still, Japanese immigrants found some loopholes. They were able still to control land through 3-year leases, and they were able to transfer the ownership of the land from the alien parents or fathers to their American-born children. And they also found another loophole where they could transfer land from the Japanese owner to a corporation. Another 1920 alien land laws was passed to close up those loopholes. 3-year leases were no longer legal. Ownership by minors were no longer considered legal. Other loopholes were still sought, and this included transferring land into the name of American-born adult children, transferring land ownership into the names of white friends and white associates. The alien land laws were eventually invalidated in 1952 under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. But this would be over 30 years later, and the damage had already been done. The effects of the alien land laws: it criminalized Japanese ethnic enterprise. Owning a farm, if you were a Japanese alien, you could be subject to criminal prosecution. It created economic hardship, and it destabilized the economy for the Japanese immigrant community. It actually led to many Japanese to move out of the agricultural enterprises that they had established. Exclusionists focus on establishing the alien land laws to drive the Japanese immigrants into an economic corner where their businesses could not survive. Japanese exclusion was originally indirect through agreements between Japan and the U.S. Uh, Immigration declined due to the passage of the Gentleman's Agreement of 1907, which was an indirect form of exclusion. It was a cooperative agreement between Japan and the U.S. Laborers were denied entry. Japanese women were still allowed entry as picture brides, but this ended in 1921 with the Ladies' Agreement, another agreement between the two countries, which barred the entry of picture brides and ending Japanese immigration. Finally, what ended Japanese immigration to the U.S. was the Immigration Act of 1924, also known as the Oriental Exclusion Act or Johnson-Reed Act. This act denied entry for all aliens ineligible for citizenship, uh, of which the Japanese were now placed in that category as being alien ineligible for citizenship. A quota system was established where entry quotas were allowed for 2% of the 1890 base for white immigrants. The anti-Japanese movement goals included cancellation of the Gentleman's Agreement, which still allowed for immigration except for laborers, exclusion of the Picture Brides program, exclusion of Japanese immigrants, denial of citizenship to American-born Japanese, and then application of alien land laws, which prevented Japanese ethnic enterprise. The immigration door would be sealed for 41 years until after World War II, when in 1948, anti-miscegenation laws were now repealed. The 1952 Japanese were allowed citizenship naturalization rights, and in 1956, the alien land laws were now repealed. So what brought on the hostilities? They were unable to avoid the Chinese experience. They were racialized as aliens ineligible for citizenship. Ethnic solidarity was viewed as a threat, and they wore a racial uniform. History repeats itself. New alien land laws have been introduced. 12 states have proposed alien land laws to block real estate property sales to entities and citizens from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. House Bill 17 was signed recently into Texas law by Governor Greg Abbott, which restricted land ownership, including residential, commercial, industrial property, to address national security concerns. So definitely we see history repeating itself and the same issues cropping up and the need for communities to come together, such as in the photograph where in the state of Texas people are protesting HB 17 being signed into law.